What's good, Atlanta? This is the Blog and Dirty podcast, where Dirty Bird is the word. If you haven't heard, I'm your host, John Buhler, lead writer for FanSided. Got an exciting show for you guys here today. We have made it through the bye week here in Dirty Bird Nation. We've got a huge game coming up on tap on Indigenous Peoples Day, Monday night in prime time, hosting the Buffalo Bills, who just lost their first game of the season. A lot of things to unpack here, a lot of observations about the league at large while we were on the bye. So this episode today is going to be a little bit more about, what we're walking into, the rest of the way as Falcons fans after what we've seen through the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. But before we begin, be sure to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Just do whatever you can. Spread the good word about how awesome this show is, because I love doing it for you guys each and every week. Love talking about my favorite NFL team with you guys. I'm so happy that FanSided continues and allows me to do that. But be sure to do all those things real quick. And so you know what? Let's get started here. Let's get started with some vibe check. How are the vibes heading into Monday Night Football at home versus Buffalo? The big thing for me is, in a weird way, because the Bills lost to the Patriots by a field goal in their primetime game, that kind of, in a way, plays to the Falcons' disadvantage here. You thought there'd be a chance that the Bills could be coming in really full of themselves, thinking, oh, we're undefeated, we can't be stopped, we're so good. But you lose to a division rival. You lose to a team that's probably the second best in your own division in New England. Now you're going to be coming in like, okay, great. We gotta be ready to rock on the road versus an Atlanta team that's got a lot of talent on both sides of the football. So yeah, I would have preferred to have seen Buffalo be undefeated coming in with the chance that they'd overlook us, but that's not really going to be the case. I do think having the extra week to get healthy and mentally prepare for this game is good. And I think more importantly, entering week 6 with some momentum, having beaten the Commanders and everything of that nature, that certainly plays to the Falcons' advantage. Like, could you imagine if they were like 1-3 and they had lost, to the Panthers like they did, and then they lost a close one to the Commanders like they did to the Buccaneers to start? That would have been devastating. Because the first 6 games of the season for the Falcons are largely going to dictate how the season could go the rest of the way. And I'll touch on this more here with our penultimate topic of the day. But it's really important that, for lack of a better word, that Atlanta takes it game by game, week by week here, because the schedule's going to be what it's going to be. There are wins to be had here, but there's also games that we thought the Falcons were certainly going to win that they're not. And there's games that we thought they were certainly going to lose that are certainly more plausible. And in a way, like I did at the start of the year, pick this game between the Bills as a victory for the Falcons. I thought like this was kind of a trap game sort of feel for Buffalo. Atlanta might sneak one past them being at home. Because how often does Buffalo come here? Like once every 8 years. So maybe that could play to their advantage. Defenses play good enough to kind of maybe keep Josh Allen at bay here. But I don't know. I'm going to make a pick on this game at the final of it. I'm like right there on the fence here as well. Still trying to figure out exactly what's going on. Good morning, Christy. Welcome to the program. Follow along with the chat and everything like that. So, I would say for the most part, the vibes with this game they're good, but they are muted a little bit. I wish the team was soaring as sky high into the bye as it was, but obviously some things happened over the course of this past weekend that did not go in the Falcons' favor. But, that's the nature of the NFL. Not everything is going to break your way. Some weeks, everything is going to break your way. Some weeks, nothing is going to break your way. I mean, we look across the sports landscape. Last weekend was a rough weekend for people in New York, rough weekend for people in Philadelphia, Not looking like the Phillies or Yankees are going to advance. The Eagles lost. Penn State lost. The Giants and Jets both lost. It's tough out there. But, Georgia was on a bye. Georgia got a win. The Falcons were on a bye. Braves didn't lose. The Hawks are still looking pretty good, on paper. So I've got that going for me. But yeah, vibes are good. Wish they were a little bit better, but I'll take them for what they are right now at this point. There's nothing we can do about it. It's good. I wish it was great. All right, let's move on to our next topic here with around the perimeter. Thoughts and observations around the league during the bye week. So we'll look at this. So work my way kind of through each division here. I feel vindicated, or I feel validated, that I knew New England was going to be halfway decent. And again, we got to play the entire AFC East on the schedule this year, including Buffalo upcoming up. The Dolphins and Jets just suck. So I feel pretty good about those games. But again, we are the Falcons. We know what we're capable of. We can hang with anybody, and we can lose to just about anyone. I do think, in a way, Buffalo's 4-1 feels a bit artificially inflated in some ways. I don't know if they're as good as what their record indicates, but they might be the toast of the AFC right now, because the only two other teams in the AFC that are 4-1 are Indianapolis and Jacksonville. How much are you really buying into them? A little bit. I think that at this point, like, those teams are having really good years, and we can't really deny that. But I think Buffalo is the toast of the AFC, but again, I think it's a little bit muted as well. I don't really have much to unpack here with the Patriots and Dolphins. Jets are awful. Like, I thought Aaron Glenn was going to be a good head coach for them, and it's clearly not really been the case. And he played there, he starred there. Again, this is what happens when you bring Justin Fields into your program. This is what it's going to be. And the Jets are never going to win anything. Like, just a bad weekends for the Jets. The Mark Sanchez of it all. I can't believe people are fans of that team. I think that, like, and this is coming from a tortured Falcons fan. I'm like, could it be worse? Yes, the Jets could be worse. Looking at the AFC North, that division is massively disappointed. Look, I thought the Browns played good enough to beat Minnesota. I don't think Minnesota's that good. They're 3-2. We beat the tar out of them. I thought Dylan Gabriel showed a lot of positive signs. Again, he looks small out there, but he can play quarterback decently. If Brock Purdy can be a starter in this league, so can he, I would suppose. The Bengals, they traded for Joe Flacco because Joe Burrow's hurt and Jake Browning can't play. The Bengals are a tire fire. I saw Shamar Stewart was held out again. Terrible draft pick. The Steelers feel like they're going to win the division by default, but I'm like, again, I don't think they're that good. And then Baltimore, what a sad bag of crap that team is. They were my Super Bowl pick, y'all. And they're terrible. Zach Warren's defense can't stop anybody. Lamar Jackson's hurt. Cooper Rush is playing. They got their clock cleaned by the Texans. And I watched a lot of the game on Red Zone. It was really, really, really bad. Kind of wonder if, like, John Harbaugh is feeling some heat, because I know he's been in that job since 2008. Since we hired Mike Smith, they hired John Harbaugh that same year. I know he's got that Super Bowl, but that was back in 2013. I'm kind of wondering, in a lot of instances, if, like, we've seen the best of the Ravens football as a franchise. And I will say this: between Buffalo and Baltimore, whoever doesn't win a Super Bowl this year, either of them or both of them, it's not happening with their current core. It might be Buffalo's year. It's not looking like it's going to be Baltimore's year. Moving on to the AFC South, Colts are the biggest surprise for me. Did not think they'd be this good. I guess Daniel Jones being a mobile quarterback, playing with Jonathan Taylor. This team's got a refined sense of focus. Getting Lou Anarumo to help out on defense has been key for them. Again, why did they draft Anthony Richardson? I do not understand that. I don't know what the point of that is. But the Colts might win their first division, in a decade, or since I've been writing about sports. So good for them. Thought it was hilarious that Jacksonville got the win over the Chiefs, and I'll touch on Kansas City here in a second. Jacksonville's 4-1. I was wrong about Liam Cohen. I thought he was going to be a disaster. But again, Jacksonville's playing with a lot of momentum. Every couple years or so, they'll have a team that's halfway decent. We saw what the 22 team, and then the Saxonville in 17. I think, if I'm not mistaken, 22. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence's second year there in Duval County. I don't know how good he is. He's just kind of a guy. He's a Jag playing for the Jags. But it'll be interesting to see how the Jaguars and the Colts play. Also, the fact that like the Colts have no clue how to win in Jacksonville, and they got to play them there. It's unbelievable. Texans, I think they've won 2 in a row to get out of an 0-3 hole. Again, they've got to kind of climb their way back because, again, I feel very validated in the sense that like somebody in this division is going to emerge and be decent. And with the Texans, it's like you wasted your opportunity. And the Titans are just ass. And I mean, they beat the Cardinals in what was a game that like was sinful for the Cardinals to lose. Like the Titans should be 0-5, but they're 1-4. And anyway, let's move on to the AFC West, then we'll get into our conference here. Don't really trust anybody in the AFC West. The Raiders, they don't know what they're doing. Geno Smith has no time to throw the football. Don't think they have the opportunity to hand the ball off to Ginty because they're always behind. The Pete Carroll hire was a terrible decision by the Raiders, but that's what they do. Chargers and Broncos. Chargers started out 3-0. Now they're 3-2. The Broncos have won 2 in a row. One of them is probably going to win the division. Maybe not. Maybe the Chiefs will do it. But the Chiefs are 2-3. And Patrick Mahomes just can't carry this team forever going forward. They kind of are lacking talent. And honestly, like, it's about time for the Chiefs to circle the drain. I'm just done with them. They have some most obnoxious fans out here. This is coming from a guy who works at FanSided Media. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm just like, and I'll say this. I talked about this last year on the show with Sterling Holmes of Stacking the Box, talking to Michael, welcome to the show. And I was talking about, because he's a Mizzou guy. He also, covers the Chiefs and stuff like that. And I said, like, I think y'all are Georgia. And he's like, oh yeah, we're definitely going to three-peat. Nobody in this town doesn't think that we're not going to three-peat. Three-peating's hard. Georgia didn't do that in 23. Chiefs didn't do it last year. It's kind of looking like it's a trying year for the Chiefs. And it hasn't been easy for Georgia since winning it all 22. So like, they're going to be good. They're going to be in and around the playoff mix, but like, I don't think the AFC Invitational is going to be at Arrowhead anymore. The Arrowhead Invitational, the AFC Championship game. So again, I would say Buffalo is probably the best team in the AFC right now. Where you get them this week at home, if we beat them, then you got to be feeling really, really, really good about your Atlanta Falcons. But if you lose, it's not the end of the world. Again, I don't know if there's really, I mean, who besides Buffalo, who's the best team in the AFC? Is it the Colts? Are you kidding me? Maybe it's the Jags. Like, at that point, you're like, are we really ready to live in that world? The fact that Pittsburgh's kind of near the top kind of intrigues me, but it might devolve into some more Mike Tomlin, Stockholm syndrome there. And they're just going to keep buying into whatever he's doing. So I don't know. AFC's kind of beating up on itself, but there's some really bad teams at the bottom. Let's move on to the NFC real quick. Eagles suffered their first loss to the Broncos. Again, that happens. One of the guys I do a weekly radio hit on Friday with Rich Quinones with On Cue with Rich. He said that the Broncos were a live dog, and he was right. He also kind of covers the NFL and professional sports in college in and around Philadelphia, but he's not an Eagles fan. He's a Giants fan. So he's like, yeah, I think the Eagles might be in line to be upset here. Commanders got to win. Cowboys beat the tar out of the Jets, and the Giants lost a game to the Saints. Cowboys can put up points. They also will allow points. I think the Commanders have like second life here. I think we're very fortunate that we got the Commanders when Jaden Daniels couldn't play. I will say this with the Giants. Dart offers a lot of promise, but again, him playing for Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, there's going to be growing pains here. I said him coming out of Ole Miss, like, oh, it'll work because he's Baker Mayfield 2.0. Well, we saw Baker Mayfield turn the ball over a lot. And I'll touch on the Saints here in a little bit. They kind of impressed me a little bit more in that game, even though the Giants are bad too. But like, somebody has to win that game. And when you're at the bottom of like a league, this is kind of where you show your mental toughness. And I thought that the Saints showed more than the Giants. NFC North, pretty competitive across the board. I still think the Lions are the toast of the division. Packers 2-1-1. Don't really have a good feel for them. Again, I think that there's a ceiling with Jordan Love at quarterback and definitely with Matt LaFleur at head coach. The Vikings are 3-2. That is just some paper tiger nonsense. Like, I got to be straight up with you guys. Like, as I was watching the game, like on NFL Network or through Fubo or whatever versus the Browns, I'm like, God, the Vikings are just so lame. Like, they're such a lame franchise. And I'm just like, everybody over there is like, cheering on this team, thinking JJ McCarthy is like the second coming of Jesus Christ or something, some sort of nonsensical thing out there. It is kind of cool seeing Atlanta area native Max Brosmer, who played at Centennial, I believe, on the sidelines there, getting a paycheck and getting to travel across the country. Feel bad that Dylan Gabriel's fiance and his family didn't get to make the trip from Cleveland and Hawaii. But like, I guess I'd say this from that game: the Browns like lost it more than I felt that the Vikings won it. And I mean, we played the Vikings. We didn't even play particularly good. We beat the tar out of them at their place. So I think once they play like high quality teams like Green Bay and Detroit with greater regularity, like it's not gonna work out good for them. And as far as the Bears are concerned, I mean, this is kind of how the Bears are doing is kind of how I thought. I thought Carolina was going to be like this. Carolina's worse than this, but maybe about the same sort of thing. They're going to win around 7 games or so, be feisty, make a lot of positive strides towards next year. But like, again, I don't see a playoff in the future for the Bears. Looking over to our division, let's do NFC West and get to our division. 49ers at 4-1. Don't buy that at all. Seahawks at 3-2. Don't really have a feel for that team. They're a lot of fun. Rams 3-2. Again, this is the last year they're going to be good. Cardinals at 2-3. They've lost 3 in a row. Things have started to turn there for Jonathan Gannon. And I think there's also a Kyler Murray problem. I don't think people like him. They kind of feel he's aloof. He's kind of self-serving. And it's kind of hard to win games when your quarterback's like that, even if you are mega talent. I mean, that's what Jay Cutler was with the Bears. Like I said, 2 games are probably going to separate first place from last place in the NFC West. I will say, though, there's going to come some sort of point where like, oh, is it Brock Purdy? Oh, is it Mac Jones in San Francisco? I know we got to play them there in 2 weeks. I think we can get them. And the one team, I mean, the Rams probably have the highest ceiling of anybody in the NFC West. Seattle intrigues me. I'm just kind of like sitting here thinking, we also got to play this entire division, I think, too, don't we? Yeah. Yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking, like, Seattle, I can't quite get my finger on what they are. NFC West is still so much to be decided. I think Arizona might be falling behind, and for reasons that, like, I may have overlooked, but kind of honestly expected. Let's move on to the NFC South. Let's do that. Let's do that real quick. Okay. So Buccaneers are 4-1. We're 2-2. The Panthers are 2-3. The Saints are 1-4. Buccaneers might be better than I expected. Look, as much as I would love for us to steal the game in Tampa later on, I'm not so sure of that, which kind of means we got to sweep the Saints and we got to win that other game versus the Panthers at home to give ourselves the best chance of making the playoffs. Again, our 2 wins are in the NFC versus teams that are in the playoff mix, whether that's Washington at 3-2 and the Vikings at 3-2. So that helps us, but we got to take care of business in the division. As far as the Panthers are concerned, trying to think who do they play. I'm trying to remember who they play. Panthers. I know. I'm trying to remember who. I think they play like the Dolphins. Yeah, I think that's it. Well, that's a sad bag of crap team too. So I'm gonna take a sip of coffee. I'm gonna get back to the Panthers and talk on the Saints and then touch on us and finish up only about us and the Bills the rest of the way. I don't know if Bryce Young's it. He looks small, and I feel like for him to win games is kind of how the Dolphins have to win games with Tua Tagovailoa. It's like everything else has to happen. It's like he's a trailer. He's not a tractor. He's never going to be a driving force in this. But like it's a trailer. Like he's really being like drugged to the. It feels like that the Panthers win games in spite of Bryce Young. Yes, we lost them 30-0 on the road, but we gave that game away in so many different ways. That was more like the Falcons giving the Panthers a victory than the Panthers really taking it from us. So, but I still think Dave Canales is a really good head coach. They still got to figure out the talent there on both sides of the ball. I think they play hard, but they may hit a finite ceiling with their quarterback. And, it's unfortunate when anybody has a franchise guy they think it is, and it's not. You kind of know pretty quickly. Now in year 3, I don't think it's going to be him. And as far as the Saints are concerned, Spencer Rattler's not the guy, but like I will give the Saints a lot of credit against my better judgment. And again, this is for comic purposes later on when we sweep their ass. I think they're well coached. I think Brandon Staley is not a head coach, but he's a really good defensive coordinator. I think Kellen Moore is built for this a little bit as a head coach. I think his rapport with Doug Nussmeier, being his OC, having been with him in the coaching department since 2018, once Moore retired, that bodes well for the Saints. I thought that the team played with just a greater sense of urgency than the Giants did. I thought that they played like, can't be 0-5. And I think that they kind of baited Jackson Dart a little bit in that game. So, I mean, like, I don't want to take the Saints lightly because they always play us very tough. But, like, this was not a team that was going to go winless this year. The Jets might. And they need a lot of talent there. They got to figure out what they're doing financially. But I saw a team that, like, in a very desperate spot, like, trying to figure it out. And it just kind of goes to show, like, in this league, everybody, for the most part, like, players and coaches don't tank. Organizations do. These guys have a lot of pride out there. And there are wins to be had. But there's also, you can give a game away too. So I thought that the Saints, just watching that game on the red zone versus the Giants, it makes me a little bit we're not going to cakewalk to 2-0 over them is basically what I'm implying here. So then obviously with us, we're on a bye, feeling pretty good. The talent's there. Should we be 2-2? Yeah, I mean, like, we probably won a game. We won a game that was close. We lost a game that was close. Things of that nature. I got to really focus in the next 2 weeks and really try to enter that middle part of the season at 3-3. Really need to do that. All right, enough of that. Let's have a slice of pumpkin pie. It's almost that time of the year, but when we have slices of pumpkin pie, we're always talking about the draft because Mel Kiper Jr. loves pumpkin pie. He has his wife make it all the time, all filler, no killer, and this is the Blogging Day podcast. We need to give Terry Fontenot his praise for this impressive rookie class. I look at the 4 guys that he drafted on defense, and they're all making huge impacts. People around the league have been saying, like, look what the Falcons did. And I think, and this is like, you talk about the 2 edge rushers with Jalen Walker and James Pearce Jr. You talk about the 2 defensive backs there with Xavier Watts and Billy Bowman Jr. The big thing that I want to touch on is I am so glad we have Xavier Watts. Favorite draft pick we made. And this is a guy who went to Georgia who loves Jalen Walker and is glad we got him. The Saints and Panthers didn't. We got him before the Bucs could. Xavier Watts just has tremendous football instincts. Again, I don't know how athletic he really is, but I think he's just so savvy above the shoulders that he puts himself in advantageous positions to make plays. I think playing alongside one of his heroes in Jesse Bates III is making him an even better player. Yeah, Michael, we need to resign Terry immediately. I'm kind of leaning that way. I think that, like, he has drafted well. There are things where, like, he has missed. Like, look, the Jalen Mayfield pick, the Richie Grant pick. And even people are dogging him for Kyle Pitts. Look what happens when he has a quarterback who can get him the ball. Kyle Pitts has been outstanding this year. There's no way around that. And then obviously Bijan, Drake, Penix, you name it. Algier was a late round gem. This guy's a battering ram out of BYU. Love him. Need to bring him back too. So again, like, you're not going to hit on every pick you make, but the 4 guys, like the 4 horsemen of the Atlanta Falcons defensive apocalypse, we finally have a defense now. I kind of feel like there's things that I've seen out of all 4 of them that leads me to believe that they're going to grow and prosper, throughout their rookie contracts. And again, I don't know if all of them are going to get second contracts with the team. Again, we're talking about a hard salary cap, a growing pie, but it only grows so much. So maybe by that point we get Kirk Cousins off the books, things of that nature, and figure out where to find some more money. But so here's my thought. Xavier Watts is just really playing out of his mind. Billy Bowman Jr. really playing with a lot of urgency. I like that. He has a very defined, specialized role with this team, kind of as the nickel cornerback, and he's making the most of it. He's basically, and because he's playing so well, he's made D. Alford be better. D. Alford's like, look, you're a reserve now. You barely made this team. When you're out there, you got to make every possession count. You can't get beat like a drum over the top. And I think that the insertion of Watts and Bowman into the secondary has made the defense better. Again, I really want AJ Terrell to get back from his hamstring, whenever that is, because then we're really cooking with gas. And as far as the edge rushers are concerned, there with Walker and Pearce, there's things like, look, this isn't all about sacks. This is all about generating pressure. This is all about, getting the quarterback off of his timing and rhythm. There are plays that I've seen Walker make that leads me to believe this is why the guy won the Butkus at UGA. He's long, he's rangy, kind of like what Leonard Floyd was at Athens too, and throughout his career in the NFL, whether that was with the Bears, the Rams, the 49ers, now here. There's kind of a thing where he gets around the edge, just got a lot of bend. Kind of feel like he has combo moves, or he'll do it's not like a one-trick pony where he's just trying to use speed. This is a guy that I think is very honed in on his craft, and I think he'll get better as he goes along. I think he takes to coaching very well, and I think more importantly, ultimate team guy. I think he loves seeing his teammates make big plays too. I think everybody on this defensive line and front seven for the Falcons feels that way. And because they we're doing this together. And I think when you have a team that doesn't quite have the emerging star in the front seven, when you come together as a collective, that's when big things happen. And then with Pearce, again, this guy's got a little bit more of a muted role. His is more specialized, just do this one thing really well. I love his energy. I love that he does not stop when he's out there. He gives his all. And I also think that he's still trying to figure it out. You're going from SEC speed to NFL speed. This is a guy that so far so good. He's getting better too. He generates a lot of pressure. He beats a lot of people. The sack's got to come. And again, who's he learned that from? Leonard Floyd. That's what Leonard Floyd does. That's what Leonard Floyd has done since I was at Georgia. This is what the dude does. But I think what you have to remember with these edge rushers is I don't care if they both finish with under 5 sacks. It doesn't matter. What ends up happening is this is opening up opportunities for Divine Diablo to make plays, for Caden Ellis to make plays, for Brandon Dorlus to make plays, for Rook to make plays, for Zach Harrison to make plays, David Onyemata, anybody in and around that front seven. I'm probably missing a name or two here. I will say the Dorlus has kind of become one of my new favorite players in the team. I just feel like he's such a total disruptor. Maybe that's why the Falcons were willing to let Grady Jarrett walk. Again, I don't have the karmic implications of that, but there's the front seven for the Falcons has looked better than it has in a while. And again, I want to see this whole defense kind of come together. And I think, Jeff Ulbrich's really been a huge difference for this team. Again, this is a guy that I'm oh, this is just Raheem Morris hiring his buddy. This isn't going to work out. And it kind of has. But that brings me up to the next part here. I have to ask myself a question. Let's blow the whistle or blow the whistle. Is this phenomenal defense sustainable? Right here in the moment. I'm going to blow the whistle, yes. And here's why. I was hit or miss right here the entire time. Didn't know what direction we were going to go in. But the reason I'm going to blow the whistle, yes, is because the first part of the Falcons' schedule, the first third's challenging. Even if we go 2-4 and we lose to the Bills and the 49ers, you got some wins there to rattle up in the middle. And as long as you look competitive, and again, you beat two decent teams in terms of the ledger with the Vikings and the Commanders. Your two losses are in division. And plus we haven't played an AFC team yet. AFC might just be a bunch of crap. That's totally within the realm of possibility. Ulbrich is coming with a crashing sense of urgency. The defense seems to be more locked in than it ever has. They're playing fast. They're playing physical. This is what everybody on the defensive side of the ball wants, hopes, and is striving for. The other thing is, you get to the part of the schedule where it eases up a little bit. And when that does, some of these pressures become sacks. Some of these errant throws become picks. Some of these fumbles become scoop and scores. And then you start rattling it off and you're okay, we're going to get a game or so above 500. We're going to keep going. We're going to build on this. Then you get to the end of the season where you got to play the Buccaneers and the Rams and stuff like that. Then you're playing with confidence, and you're like, okay, we know we're good. It doesn't matter where we started the season. We're on their level now. We're going to get it. So it's all about staying healthy. I think the defense has a little more depth than I thought. And again, I'll think about this. On the other side of the ball, I thought losing Caleb McGarry for the season was going to be so detrimental to this team, and it still might. Elijah Wilkinson's played great at right tackle. I've been very impressed with him. Been very impressed with Ryan Newsel at center. Matthew Bergeron's leveled up at guard, and obviously we know what Jake Matthews and Chris Lindstrom are all about in their respective offensive line positions. I think the defense is also playing very hard because they know how good the offense can be. Chris, you got to make a good point here. They can continue to work as a team, and we will see them improve. I just want to see more endurance in the second half. Yes, that's the absolute best point here. I thought the Falcons played great defense in the first half last year. Then injuries happened, and it kind of fizzled out. That's why Jimmy Lake was a mistake. Jeff Ulbrich's been doing this for a while. Jeff Ulbrich knows the city, knows his team, knows the personnel, and I think it's going to work out. But again, got to play with a lot of heart here the next 2 weeks. And again, I want wins. If they don't come, that's okay. We can be 2-4. We can still achieve everything that we want to as a football team. I think 3-3 would be great. 4-2, I'd be ecstatic. I'd be doing cartwheels in the streets, even though I don't do cartwheels anymore because I'm 36 years old and everything hurts. But I do think it's sustainable, particularly if you get Terrell back and everything like that. Also, these young players they're not just like looking good in flashes. They're making plays when it matters. You got to remember, we didn't have Watts. We didn't have Bowman. We didn't have Pearce. We didn't have Walker a year ago. Those guys were all in college starring at 3 of them were starting in the SEC and the other one was starting for Notre Dame. I think all but Bowman played in the playoff. Like, you're talking like legit dudes. Just blow the whistle, yes. Feel pretty good about this defense. I just kind of wonder, though, like, there will come times where the defense it's just not going to be in the cards. They're going to be going up against a great high-end offense. And then Penix and the boys in offense, they gotta bail them out. They gotta win a shootout. And I think that they're capable of that. Again, this team needs to continue to build and play with confidence. It's all about up here. And I think more importantly, it's all about coaching. Because look, like Michael, you brought up a great point. We need to re-sign Terry immediately. I don't think he's the problem. If there's a problem with this team, it's probably the coaching staff. If this team makes the playoffs, if this team misses the playoffs it will be for 2 reasons. If they do not make the playoffs, here's why. The roster just gets, the injury attrition, again, that happens to everybody, but I also think it'd be coaching. I think that, like, the coaching is going to cost this team maybe a few more games this year, but like we can't come up dead in games that we need to win. Like, we can't like lose to the Dolphins because of coaching. Like, you got to win those games, man. All right, let's move on to our penultimate topic. Let's compete competitively in competitions. Good old Mike Smith phrase there. What's a realistic record for the Falcons going forward? So I was looking at this. I think Matt Irvin wrote this for Falcons Wire, and it kind of intrigued me here. So the Falcons are 4-4. They're 2-2 in the NFC. They're 0-2 in the division. You got to play the AFC East in its entirety, and you got to play the NFC West in its entirety this season. So I'll just try to work through this here. I've kind of split this season up in a few parts. So we have 2 more games left in the first part of the season. At home versus the Bills on Monday night, and then at the 49ers in prime time on a short week. Then you have the middle portion, which is, starts at the end of October with, you host the Dolphins, you're at the Patriots, you play the Colts in Germany, you host the Panthers, you're at the Saints, you're at the Jets. And I was kind of throwing the Seahawks at home in there too. That kind of, the Jets-Seahawks game is kind of where it flips to the latter part of the season, where you got to go at the Bucs, at the Cardinals, host the Rams, and then host the Saints. All right. The goal here needs to be winning 10 games, because if you win 10 games, the chances of you making the playoffs are pretty high in some way, shape, or form. And this is not about catching Tampa. This is about taking care of business when we can. All right. Let's just say we beat the Bills, or we lose the 49ers. Let's just say like we split those. So you're 3-3. That's the goal. If you're 4-2, that'd be incredible because at that point, you have the potential to go on a really lengthy winning streak. Because again, I think you're going to beat the Dolphins no matter what. At the Patriots looks tough, and then the Colts in Germany, that could be challenging too. Then you host the Panthers, you're at the Saints, and then you host the Jets. Like there's a chance the Falcons could have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games in a row. Don't think that that's happening. Football has a chance of ebb and flow here. The Seahawks game kind of intrigues me a little bit later on. At Tampa, if you won 9 in a row, you could win in Tampa. The Cardinals may be done by then. The Rams, we'll see what happens. And the Saints, you got to win that game, potentially if the playoffs is on the line. All right, so let's kind of go through the middle part of the season. Let's just go through the Dolphins through the Seahawks game. I would say of those 7 games, you have to win 4 of them. Like you have to beat the Dolphins. You have to beat the Panthers at home. You have to beat the Saints on the road, and you have to beat the Jets on the road. I think at the Patriots could be challenging. The Colts in Germany, if you win that would be great. And then if you host the Seahawks, that would be great too. So if you're 4-4 right now, and then you go 4-3 in the middle third, so you're 7-6 heading into 7-6 heading into your final 4 games. Well, at that point, you got to win 3 of your final 4 games. Again, I think you got to beat the Saints at home. I think you got to probably beat the Cardinals on the road, and then you got to split between the hosting the Rams and then at the Buccaneers. Again, you see why that middle 7 between the Dolphins and the Seahawks will define the season. Like if you go any worse than 4-3, you're not making the playoff because that's the gimme part of your schedule. And again, I have a lot of respect for what I've seen out of Seattle, a lot of respect for what I've seen out of Indianapolis, and a lot of respect for what I've seen out of New England up to this point. And like the other 4 games, you got to win. I don't care. I don't care if it's Panthers, Saints, and Jets in a row. You have to win all those games because that means you have to win 2 of the other ones to offset that. And God forbid, it does seem kind of doable there, Michael. Let's say you go 5-2 in that middle stretch, and let's just say let's say you lose at the Patriots and you lose to the Seahawks and all because like that would be 4 in a row. Let's say you get the Colts in Indy or the Colts in Germany. That'd be cool. So at that point, if you're 3-3 and you go 5-2, at that point you're 8-5, and then your final 4, you just got to get 2 more wins. See how important that is. Like that middle stretch is so clutch. And I think like again, like the 49ers and I think the Bills are beatable. I don't look at any of them and like, this is gonna be tough. The only game on the schedule that really scares me right now is at Tampa. Just because like I think that they might be playing like that team might win the NFC potentially. And we know we almost beat them, could have beaten them, maybe should have beaten them. There was a lot of self-inflicted nonsense on our end. Zach Robinson, if he was just a little bit better, maybe won that game. Chris, you bring up a good point. Winning the second quarter of games has been critical the last 3 years for me. I want to see us win out the NFC South. Yeah, I'd love for us to finish 4-2. So I'm going to go best case scenario, worst case scenario, and likely. Then we'll move on to our final topic here. So, okay, best case scenario. Let's say we win. Let's say we beat both the 49ers and the Bills. That would be amazing. You're 4-2. All right. Let's say you beat the Dolphins 5-2. That middle 7 part. I'm going to say 5-2 at that point. Maybe 6-1. 6-1. You know what? We'll drop a game somewhere along the way. Whether that's the Seahawks, Patriots, Colts. So if you're 4-2 and you're 6-1, at that point you're what, like 10-3? You pretty much just need to win 1 more game in your final 4 to make the playoff. You beat the Saints. I mean, even at that point, I think the best you could probably do is 13-4, 12-5. I think 13-4 is ridiculous, but I mean that would also require you're beating the upper echelon of the teams here. If you're I don't know if we're a 13-4 team. 12-5 would be really amazing. So let's say that. Let's put karma in our pocket. Worst case, all right, you lose both of these games to the Bills and 49ers. You're 2-4. All right. I still think you're going to beat the Dolphins 3-4. You lose to the Patriots 3-5. You lose to the Colts 3-6. Beat the Panthers 4-6. You lose at the Saints 4-7. You beat the Jets 5-7. You lose to the Seahawks 5-8. You lose to the Buccaneers 5-9. Like the worst case here is probably going to be 6-11. I think. I think that like, and if at that point, if we go 6-11 or 5-12, like you got to fire Raheem Morris and the staff. Like you've underachieved with what your talent is. So again, like the range here is 5 wins to 12 wins, and it's kind of what you do in the in between here. All right, and I'll just say, like for the record, let's just say because I got to make a pick for the Bills game here in the next topic. So let's say we're 3-3 going into the Dolphins game. All right. You beat the Dolphins, you're 4-3. You lose to the Patriots, you're 4-4. Maybe a split with the Patriots and Colts, so you're what 5-4 at that point. You beat the Panthers, you beat the Saints, you beat the Jets, so you're 8-4. Let's say you drop to the Seahawks because momentum's there, 8-5. Follow to the Buccaneers, 8-6. You beat the Cardinals, 9-6. You lose to the Rams, 9-7, and you got to beat the Saints at home to make the playoff, 10-7. You know what? I'd take that. I would take that right now. Again, 10 wins just feels like a line of demarcation of like getting in, and okay, and yeah, I'm just thinking about this. 10-7 feels pretty realistic. Again, like if you look at it from those sort of thirds of the season, if you will, you can kind of figure out where you need to go. Again, the middle part's where you got to take advantage. But I do think if you look really good versus the Bills and 49ers, God, you can beat anybody. Again, I don't think anybody on the schedule really scares me. Buffalo, maybe Buffalo's the best team you play. And again, we talked about this earlier in the show. They're 4-1. They might be the best team in the AFC. Like if you lose to the best team in the AFC and the best team in the NFC in Tampa, like who cares? Like this happens. We just want to make the damn playoffs. And I think that's also where Matt Urban came down with it. He said 10-7 is kind of what we're looking at here, which we haven't won 10 games in a very, very long time. So I will gladly take that. All right, I saw the line and it opened up my eyes. I saw the line. Let's make a pick against the spread on Monday Night Football versus the Bills and get out of here. All right. So looking at ESPN Bet, the Falcons are getting 4.5 points at home. The over-under is 50.5. The money lines are Buffalo -210 and Atlanta +175. The matchup predictor from ESPN Analytics has the Bills projected to win this game 62.5% of the time, and the Falcons 37.2% of the time. I think that over/under total, I think that's a bit high. I think that's a little bit higher than what I would expect this game to be. So I'm looking at, you know what, I'm gonna emo hedge this. I'm gonna emo hedge the hell out of this. I think final score prediction for this game, I'm gonna go Buffalo 24, Atlanta 22. And I think it comes down to like a field goal. Romo doesn't make it or something like that. So the under hits here, but I'm picking the Falcons to cover. So, try to feel good about this game. I mean, I'm Indigenous Peoples Day. It's been a long time since we've seen this team play. But again, like I think what we're looking for here, and again, I think you probably need to win this game more so than you do with the 49ers because it's, you've had a bye. You have another primetime game. Other one's on the road on a short week and everything like that. And again, I think you're better than the 49ers. You might not be better than the Bills. But if the Falcons play up to their standard here, they got a chance to win this game. And I also say that, like, Josh Allen's clutch and he isn't. There's kind of an ebb and flow nature with that. So, like, this isn't like a game where you're facing the Chiefs and Mahomes or whatever, where you're like, oh God, yeah, or Tom Brady, like, yeah, we're not going to figure this out because this guy's just cooler than a cucumber. Again, like, I wish I knew more about like the nature of like the Bills roster. I have a lot of respect for them. I do think that the class of the AFC East, potentially the AFC. But I did pick them. I did pick the Bills to fall to the Falcons this season. But again, this is the other big thing. This is what's so important here. We're going to learn a lot about this game from this game if Raheem Morris has staying power here. Because I think he handles failure the same way you and I and everybody else does. Nobody likes getting embarrassed. You got to pick yourself up by your bootstraps, put in the extra work, try to prevent that from happening again. But I think there's a chance, maybe you artificially inflate, winning that game over your friend Dan Quinn's team and, beating Marcus Mariota without Jaden Daniels and everything like that. I don't know how we respond to success. And you also have to remember Buffalo just lost a tough game. So they're going to come in with a greater sense of urgency. Because if they lose and New England wins, guess who's in first place? The Patriots, because they have the head-to-head tiebreaker. So, yeah. Let's see, Philip. I appreciate the comment here. You mentioned. I think if we don't take our foot off the gas on offense, the defense plays the way it has been, we can come up with a win. I hope so. That would be amazing. Again, like, this is what we've been hoping for. This is what we've been praying for. We want primetime games with a two-star quarterbacks. Josh Allen, the reigning MVP. Michael Penix Jr., the man. We got Bijan Robinson, who's becoming LaDainian Tomlinson before our very eyes. You want to be playing in these games. You don't want to be saddled like, oh, we got the game that Mark Sanchez should have been calling for Fox. Like, we don't want to have that game. The Kenny Albert, Jonathan Vilma games. We don't want that because, he's always rooting for his Saints and hating our team. But anyway, I'm not picking us to win this game, but I think we could. And just trying to look at this as objectively as I possibly can. Going to be a whole ball of emotions here. And again, I did this emo hedge versus the Vikings because I talked so much smack about the Vikings. I still don't think they're very good. I do think Buffalo's good, though. So, again, you got to, even if you lose both of these next two games to the Bills and the 49ers, you got to play tough because there are much more winnable games coming down the schedule. Even at 2-4, I don't think this team's out of it. Again, it comes down to coaching. It comes down to playing with heart. We cannot let – this team's too talented to not be in and around the playoff mix. And we're having too good of a time doing this show, aren't we, man? Yeah. Hell yeah, we are. Man. This was episode 62 of the Blog and Dirty Podcast. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter or the X at Buhler118. You can follow the show on YouTube at Blog and Dirty FS. You can follow the show on Twitter at Blog and Dirty. Give us a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. Read anything on Blog and Dirty about the Falcons. Read on FanSided.com. Read it on ATL a day. Read it on SI. Read and consume Minute Media content. Again, I write mostly about college football now in my role. But if Falcons players do something great, I'll reach out and say, hey, can I put on Hook 'em and talk about Bijan Robinson? Or if Jalen Walker, Leonard Floyd, I can do that on Dawn of the Dog all day. But again, like this team's exciting. This is a team that I don't feel like is going to just lose all the time. Yeah, appreciate it, Christy. This was a great episode. I gave it my all. I've been sick for a week. Let's do the best I can here. We're all doing the best we can here each and every day in and around the Southeast, the world, this rock that we live on. God. Once again, thanks for listening. And this is the Blog and Dirty Podcast.